Today is March 7th, 2017, and this is a CFTA Virtual Roundtable webinar on Esri Educational Resources for Campus Facilities Management. Please join me in welcoming today's panelists. With us today is Monty Coombs, Director of Systems and Services at Brown University, as well as Chad Kavanaugh. Hopefully I got your name right, Chad. He's the CAD Supervisor at Brown University. Lynn Carlson, Systems Manager and Project Facilitator. And Lynn, I believe you're the Site License Administrator as well, correct?
Yes, that's correct. I'm kind of the GIS overall site license person here at campus, yeah.
Fantastic. Glad to have you join us today.
Thanks.
Esri's Ian Feathers is with us today as well. He's a Solutions Engineer for Facilities. Hello, Ian.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
Yes. And then two of us here from the University of Kentucky, Andrew Blues, who's the Associate Director of Facilities Information Services.
Hello, that's Andrew.
And I am Michelle Ellington, the GIS Coordinator at the University of Kentucky, as well as our Site License Administrator. And I know many of you out there as the CFTA President as well. So today's webinar is being recorded, and it will be available on the CFTA YouTube page. The presentation is estimated to run around 45 minutes, with the remaining time dedicated for Q&A. So do feel free to send any questions using the questions dialog box. These will be asked at the end of the webinar as time allows. So prior to today's webinar, Brown University sent the University of Kentucky many questions. And so, we have looked at those questions and we prepared some information, but really this is just going to be a very natural discussion so that Brown, as you guys are interested in deploying a solution, that we can maybe help you. So for a moment, why don't you go ahead and just give a quick little synopsis of, why now? What are you interested in gleaning from today's discussion?
Okay, well, Michelle, thank you very much for hosting. This is Monty from Brown University. I'm sitting here with Chad Kavanaugh. So appreciate you putting this together, and hopefully we can get some of our questions answered. We are embarking on migrating our current campus map, which is a custom developed solution, over to Esri, and the big driver for that is really for the mobile capabilities that we need to provide to our community. So it all begins with trying to understand exactly how we're going to go about doing this, and it started with the licensing that Lynn manages, and if the current licensing that we have would let us migrate right into Esri without any big capital expenditure. So our first round of questions deal with the licensing questions, and then after that I'd want to get into a series of questions regarding making the selection between whether we're going to host it on site, on premise, or the cloud solution, Arcgis Online, will meet our needs, or maybe that's a better solution for us. That's preferred from an IT standpoint, but hopefully we can get a little more clarity around those two primary topics, and if there's time, we have some process-related questions as well that we wanted to ask.
Great. I have invited someone from Esri as well, Ian, to join us, because this is not easy stuff. It's extremely complicated. There's many options, many paths to take, and it really does depend on what you're trying to accomplish at the end. So I can explain to you what we've done here at UK, and Andrew can explain more of like the system configuration setup and the technical choices, and hopefully that, along with Ian's guidance, we can help you and others out there, because again, this is not easy stuff. We have the unique opportunity here at the University of Kentucky in that we are also the folks that do all site license administration. So if there's a problem that comes into our inbox, we have to figure out an answer. And so we learn a lot about what's available to us. So we have some answers. So I'm going to start with just giving you a little bit of a overview of how we run here at UK with site license administration and such. So at Esri, you know, with the resources and the licenses, there's kind of two paths you can go. You can go with single-use license, which is, you know, the user gets one license, they install it on that equipment, and it runs for them. And then every year, because it's an annual renewal, they have to request another license, and the site license administrator has to reissue them another license. And we did that for years. And it's cumbersome because every year you have to, you know, send out many hundreds, if not more, licenses, unique instances. So we migrated to a license manager, an enterprise license manager. And so we have that load balance on 2 servers, so if one goes down, we're still running. And basically, we just update those 2 licenses and then also, I think, a backup. And we are in business. No one else at the end of the year, they don't even have to request a renewal. They're just blind to any sort of back-end maintenance. And we like things that way. Now, we don't issue any standalone licenses at all. There's very, very rare cases. The software has it so that you can check out a license. You can borrow a license. So if someone is going out of the country, they can check out a license. They can connect to the license manager, go to a little prompt that says, do you want to check out a license, and they can manage their own. So it's kind of a self-servicing model, and we have reduced all of our license requests or renewal requests tenfold that way. As far as how we manage putting out the information and the resources to the community, if anyone has visited our GIS Campus Support webpage, they're not going to see what I'm about to show you, because this is a new website that it's going through the last reviews right now, and it's not live to the public yet. But this is how we manage it. It's the same setup, it's just in a Drupal format and a little bit easier to flow. So we have, you know, with Get Started, what the requirements are. The system requirements are very big for running different usage of desktop versus server and so forth. And we actually just pushed all the references over to Esri. We used to list what those references were and the resources, but we decided that let's just push it to Esri and let Esri do what Esri does best and communicate that information. And then here for the products, we list all of the products and what they can run on, whether it's desktop or server and so forth, because that information gets very confusing as well. And then we have a license request form. And so, you know, depending on your level, whether you're faculty or staff, there's different questions that you get. And I'll go into that more in detail. I think that's one of your questions. So if you're a faculty, you go through here. If you're asking for desktop, you go to the next page, and then you input all your information. And we also have a user agreement at the end of this, so that they have to state that they're not using it for profit and so forth, which is a requirement under the Site License Administration Agreement. And so at that point, we have a shared inbox. And I'm going to bring up a screenshot of that. So this is what our inbox looks like. You can see it says GIS Campus Administration on the bottom. And so these web form requests come in, and people letting us know that what they're interested in using the software for. And then we created a custom ribbon at the top. You can see it says FIS ESLA, Esri Site License Administration. And so we have these different groups. If someone is requesting desktop or student or renewals or business analyst or ArcGIS Online or server or ArcGIS Pro or other support, we can click a button and it loads like an email template with the official response and the official links. And so we just keep our template libraries up to date, and then we have many people that manage and maintain this inbox to people. So that's kind of how we work with Site License Administration. Now, at this point, I'm going to go into, I guess, some of your questions. And I'm going to open up that document. So the first question you asked is a doozy. We would like to better understand the Educational Site License Agreement for Teaching, Research, and Administrative. Specifically, we're interested in the administrative portion. Well, Esri has a great document on this. And everything I'm showing you, I prepared a little package I can send to you as well. The thing about this one, Ian, I might want to kick this over to you, is I have one dated 2015, and I can't find a newer one out there. Am I looking at the latest and greatest?
That appears to be the latest and greatest based on what we have. That was reviewed just at the end of 2015. So it doesn't account for the current 10.5 release, but everything up into that.
Okay, great. So this is a very, yeah.
That's the same version that we have that we're working off of as well.
Okay, great. So you have seen it.
Yeah, even going through this, though, we still have questions.
Sure, absolutely. So, for the attendees out there, this is a document that talks about, Table A1, Teaching, Research, and Administrative Use. So pretty much, if you're using this for teaching, you got everything. That's part of the SLA. Research has a little bit of limitations, and administrative has a couple more limitations. So in panning through to here, it really comes clear, as I think it's around the last page for administrative use. In a nutshell, administrative use does not permit currently portal, and it doesn't permit Arcgis Online. Now, it does permit Arcgis Online, but that was only as of recently. So with Arcgis Online, and I'll show you this, we have okay, so we have our this is the portal to manage the Arcgis Online educational and research portal and licenses for the university. So since I'm the site license administrator, I have access to this. And so anyone at the university who wants to get an AOL account or Arcgis Online, not to be confused with AOL.com, they get in here. And so we have a process document I'm going to show you because it actually has some interesting parameters in it. And they can do whatever they want here. And I don't even go in here at all. I don't really, I don't monitor what they do. You can look at the different statuses and see what people are working in, which is kind of cool. So you can go into status and you can see like the different apps that people are running. And different graphs, the content people have in here, and you can see what the most popular content is. But this is basically the sandbox or the playground for the educational side of the campus. Now, we also have, under the SLA, we have the University of Kentucky. We call this, we've called this University of Kentucky Facilities, but really, no one's allowed to use it for real. And what I mean by that is there's only 5 seats. So if you see here, there's 5 seats. Where if you go back to the other one, there are, I don't even know how many members we have in here, a lot. 58. Okay, people aren't using it as they could, but we have, it's unrestricted, it's unlimited. Unlimited users. Now there's unlimited users, but there's limited credits. And that's important to note. And I'll show you why. So if we go into...
Michelle,
yeah.
Michelle, can I interrupt you? Can you take a step back, though? Just back to that document that we were looking at.
Okay.
So my understanding is that we have the educational site license agreement, and we have it for teaching, research, and administrative, all 3. Okay? So if you look at Table A1, that shows, I believe, all 3. So there's Table A1.
You do. Mm-hmm.
Right? That's what we own. But that doesn't specifically list the ArcGIS Online. But an Esri representative that Chad was speaking with it told us that it does include all of the features listed on the separate administrative piece as well. But I'm not really clear about that.
Yeah, so on this page, Table 2 Teaching Research, Arcgis Online is included here.
Okay.
Okay. But for administrative, this actually is Arcgis Online administrative use description with the following: 5 named users. So we have an administrative use license, but only for 5 users. And so our thing is that who in the University of Kentucky administration gets those 5 seats? And so, and who in our organization would want to invest and start building all of these resources and apps and everything in an environment where there's only 5 seats, and like any administrative area really has equal rights to it. So I don't know personally as a site license administrator how to divvy that up. So what we've decided is no one gets it. It's used as a sandbox. So if you want to come in as an administrative area and say, hey, I'm interested in learning about this, we give you access to it, and we rotate access. Like if you look at ours right now, you will see that Logan Steele is in here, and he works for the UK Police Department. And so he has a seat in here so that he can test the environment. Now, after that, you have to buy your own. Now, we're very fortunate that we get 50% off. So we, at UK facilities, we purchased with CPPD, the Physical Plant Division, a 50-seat license to actually do our work. We don't do any work under this, Monty, because I don't think it's a good model. Now, there's rumors through the grapevine that Esri is changing that model to make it 50 seats.
Okay.
Right. There's this whole licensing change that I understand is going on from ESRI that we heard about in an educational webinar back in August, September. So all this licensing stuff is, according to what I understand, going to change dramatically over the next year. And I think they're approaching it, from what I understand, based on a university by university situation. So I think ESRI headquarters is going to the different universities and saying, okay, you know, University of Kentucky, you're up now for these changes to your license. But they may not get till Brown till, you know, well after that, because they're doing them in groups, at least as I understand it. And the other thing, Michelle, if I could ask, these 5 users, I mean, so is this facilities page, is this just a group that you guys made on ArcGIS Online, and then you just put particular people in that group? Or is there a separate administration, like, page?
We're not using groups for this because this is just for people to get, and on the administrative side, to play with the tools, like
okay.
Collector.
Right.
That's all it is.
Because I've never ever seen, and I guess our person at ESRI told us that we need to have our facilities page reactivated because for some reason it's not active. So, well, Chad and Monty, I can't even do this right now. I can't.
So Len, why don't you and I talk after the webinar, and I can help you get deeper into that.
Great.
Yeah. So that's kind of how this works. So so what do people need this for? Well, if you are wanting to run ArcGIS Pro, you need to have an ArcGIS Online account. Okay, very important. So because that's what we get a lot of our requests now with our site licenses, like, hey, I want to run ArcGIS Pro. So what we do is we go into here, we add them with their profile, and they're up and running. Also, if you want to use Business Analyst Online, Community Analyst Online, this is all in this online software as a service kind of environment that Esri is, going along with, just like the whole world is trending to. So that's kind of how, the 2 different play. If you want to look at, you asked about credit somewhere else, and so this is where you manage your credit. Now, the very important thing about credit usage, and for this I'm actually going to open up this document I have, is that, so with the, see if you can see this. Okay, can you see how it says restricted publisher, right?
Yep. Yep.
So we made a custom group called restricted publisher. So you can use administrator, publisher, restricted publisher, user, and viewer. But what happens is, and Ian, I'm not meaning to slam Esri because I love my Esri, but the model,
okay.
the model is kind of broken right now because it's unlimited users but limited credits. And so what happened to us is we would have like a student that would do it like a little research project that night, and they'd use all the credits in like 8 hours. So we had to create a restricted publisher group that basically takes away a couple of different things, like this thing called geo-enrichment, which is typically used for business analysts. And that gets important into the nuts and bolts and nitty-gritty of this. But in a nutshell, that's kind of how that works. So, you know, I talked here about this is our process for account setup for Arcgis Online. And what I wanted to show you was, you know, the different levels, because you asked later in your questions of like, what does an admin do and the different roles. So you only have one admin, and that admin manages users. Right here, let me zoom in. So the publisher, okay, I'll start here. So you have a viewer, and anyone who's a viewer can come in and they can view any of the items in this. So if you get an administrative account, you purchase one, and it's $5,000 from what I understand, but everybody's unique, because if you're a research, I think it's less money. So contact your rep directly for a quote, but it's 50% off, which is nice. So you can have unlimited viewers, I think, but you can only have like certain people that are doing the work, that are editing, and that are the administrator. So so then we have users, which are viewer privileges plus the ability to see a customized view of the site and use the organization's maps, apps, layers, and tools. And then the publisher, they can do more things. They can publish features. So there are different roles, and we mostly use this level 2, used for members who need to view, create, and share content, as opposed to this level 1, which is used for members who only need privileges to view content. Very confusing. Again, I'll share this document with you of what we've learned, but the gist of it is that if you're running the administrative use, currently there's not a viable solution under the Site License Administration for all administrative areas to have confidence in using for their daily operations, and you should buy your own. Am I right with that, Ian?
Okay, so say that one more time, just so we're clear.
I think that if you're an administrative area at a university and you want to use Arcgis Online administrative enterprise subscription to build solutions to manage your daily operations, that there's not currently a license under the Site License Administration to support that.
Specifically not. We typically handle that by the number of named users. And as you had mentioned earlier, we're going through this transition in licensing, and that's really the way forward for Esri, is this idea of named users. And so that's the way that we treat the administrative purposes as well.
Yep. I mean, we're very lucky to have the tools, and I think that the best takeaway from this is that, and again, not meaning to talk badly of Autodesk either. I love all our business partners, but Autodesk model changed, and it's costing universities a lot more money to use the software. And from my discussions with Esri, they're not having those discussions to go along that similar path. They're still supporting universities, supporting administrative areas to use the software and to continue growing it.
Yeah, absolutely. And the reason why that we've moved to this model is because the great disparity between numbers of named users, right? So some universities that would be larger, let's say, you know, they have a student body of 50,000 undergraduates, you know, they're going to have a lot more people that need this, and then also a lot more administrators, you know, or need it for administrative use. So the smaller universities, not so much. And so as we've seen that in even other sectors of the GIS industry, the named user model for us is a lot more seamless and beneficial for both us and the user.
Yep. Okay, so Monty, are you okay with question 1? Did we cover that okay?
Yeah, I believe so. Obviously, there's a lot of details in there, but I get the general gist of it. So that does help for sure.
Biggest takeaway is business analyst, we don't have access to, and we don't really have access, and no access to portal, and also very, very restricted access to Arcgis Online, except for just sandboxes.
Through the license, you can buy it all.
Yeah, you can buy it all, but just through the license.
Right. So by way of segueing into the other types of questions, the hosted versus on-prem solution, you know, all this license model that you're referring to, does it change drastically when we start talking about the ArcGIS Online? Is that a completely different licensing model, or is all this discussion of licensing carry over to that model as well?
The limit is in ArcGIS Online. So if you did ArcGIS Server on-premise, you can run as many as you want, and it's all covered. So all the on-premise, the older modeling, is covered, and you can do amazing things with it.
So right now with our facilities, the one that we purchased for the ArcGIS Online account, that we have 50 users, we're hitting our own enterprise servers, and we're not using any credits.
We're going through you have to go through ArcGIS Online to get to it.
Yeah. So we're using ArcGIS Online as like the interface. Right. We can do, build the apps. We can monitor our collector dashboard and everything, but we're not dealing with credit usage because we're hitting our own servers instead of Esri hosting it. Yeah.
And I would just add, this is Ian with Esri, I would just add that that is the most cost-efficient process for utilizing ArcGIS Online, so that way you get away from this credit model because you have your own ArcGIS servers doing the work for you, and you're just using ArcGIS Online as a web client to give you access to the web maps and the base maps that you would use for your typical day-to-day workflows or data management.
Right, so Monty and Chad, this is the model that I have here in my office. That, we've got the ArcGIS server, and that's why you guys aren't using any credits, because everything you hit is being hit through my server.
Okay.
Okay. Yep. Okay.
So it looks like you've covered a lot. As far as credits, I really don't, we have the sheet there that explains how the credits get utilized, but it doesn't really give you any sense of how many credits we're talking about here. I was trying to get some order of magnitude of what we might be up against. Does an end user coming in to just look up a map use up any credits, or is it just a higher level user only that uses credits?
Well, I think that with rendering the tiles, that's a cost on the system, but it's very nominal. There's administrative statistics you can look at where you can analyze this inside of the portal. And so now I should probably change my date though. Let me make this when we renewed.
While you're doing that, Monty, I don't think that an end user who's looking at a map will consume credits as long as the maps that you're looking at, or the data that is being hosted by that map, is sitting on your server and not on ESRI's servers.
Correct.
All right, but in a model where if we went with ArcGIS Online exclusively, everything out in the cloud, then any consumer coming in looking at a campus map could be using credits.
Oh yes.
They could be.
Yeah.
They wouldn't necessarily. Yeah.
If everything is on the cloud and hosted by Esri, there's a cost for that service. Mm-hmm. And it goes by way of credits. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
I will clarify too, one of the reasons why it's not good to, like, say, with that 5-seat administrative account, you're like, well, let me just go ahead and do it. I just want to have one seat and I want to do stuff. And, oh wait, I ran out of credits in the administrative account. Can I just buy some more? Because you can buy more credits and add it. The problem is that we experience here is that in order to buy the credit, since we're on a statewide site license agreement, that that bill basically gets sent to our CPE, Council of Post-Secondary Education Center, and they have to pay the bill. And so it just becomes a muddied up mess. That's why it was much easier for us to buy our own.
Right. Okay. All right, great. Well, that definitely gives a little bit of direction to target now as far as where we want to go with our infrastructure set up for this.
Great.
So
one other level,
yep,
though, for you to be aware of is Portal. So the difference between Arcgis Online, so say you're doing Arcgis Online, but you're doing through your own servers, and there's no cost on credits, but you're spending $5,000 a year for 50 users, okay? What's Portal? What's the difference? Well, Portal is the same exact thing. You get all the Arcgis Online, you know, like web apps and builders and tools and all the bells and whistles, but the software is hosted on your own servers instead of Esri's. That's the only difference. So not only are you hosting your own data, you're also hosting your own software. And it's the same cost. Same cost. So it comes down to if your institution has the resources and the people to manage the servers, manage the software updates, and keep everything moving. So it's different levels.
okay. What about what I was really interested in, that it's kind of right along that same vein that you're on right now, which is, you know, what are, from a end user standpoint or functionality standpoint, what we can offer on our campus map. Are there benefits or advantages of the online versus the on-premise solution? You know, I seem to recall you mentioned something about the online version has some widgets or gadgets that might be a little more mobile friendly that you might not get on premise. Is that true, or?
No, not really. I mean, we're all using online at this point because you just use those tools. I mean, and if you're pointing to your own servers,
So for on-premise, you would need Portal to use the web app builder.
It's the same tools.
It's the same tools, but the difference is Portal, which is the on-premise version of Arcgis on of sorts, both of those have a lot of things built for you, sort of like back in the Arcgis days, where if you just use Arcgis server, then there's templates, but you're building things much more custom.
Much more custom, yeah.
So depending on your needs, I mean, if you just need something to measure, then that's fine. But if you need really advanced stuff, then you have different options.
And just the ROI that we've seen with using Collector through Arcgis Online has been totally worth the investment.
Yeah, and Monty, this goes back to the other day when I mentioned to you that you would need a web developer and for that higher end stuff. So instead of using widgets and Arcgis Online sort of build it yourself app, which is very easy to do, but if you want to do, you know, more fancy stuff, you're going to need somebody who can build it from the ground up with custom widgets and all that, and that's going to be your web developer person.
Right. For example, our employee relations wellness program did a Fitbit challenge here, so we wanted to put pedometer on all our routes. So I'm not sure how easy that would have been with the web app builder, but because we have a custom, we can convert the mileage to steps and then show steps on every route you do around campus. So that's kind of an example of a fancier interface that you may want to do.
Yeah, that's getting way ahead of where we are.
Yeah.
But you know,
but very simple. Once you get your foundation, these aren't, Esri gives you all the tools. It's just where are you in the process? It's
right.
not unattainable.
Yeah, and you know, and on the flip side, we deployed a utilities web map, and I'll see if I can bring up here while we're talking about other things. And it's sharp, and it was straight out of the box Arcgis Online website web app building, and that's what we're using. We're not putting any extra effort into it because we don't need to. So there's different approaches.
Yeah, it all depends on what your outcome is, or what And you might have multiple things that you need to do that require different combinations of these things that they have. So it's not like it's not a one size can do everything. It's going to be a combination of ArcGIS Online. It's going to be a combination of web development using server. It's going to need desktop. It's going to need pro. It's just this whole combination.
Right. Including portal as well? Or do you make the selection between portal or online?
You'd make the
selection
between the two, yeah.
Yeah.
Now, so for example, this is our campus map where we have like the from and to and routing and here's the pedometer steps right here, and we have change map and all this different stuff. It looks all pretty, but with the campus utilities, we have very similar things. We can do change a different map. We can do measuring tools, print, adding all of our utilities. So, and this is just straight out of the box. There wasn't any programming that had to be done for this. It's fast.
Right.
All right.
Can I get a quick question in there? I mean, you had to have all your data in place, though, before you were able to develop that app. And,
absolutely.
And facilities management isn't anywhere near having the baseline data. Well, I mean, you've got the CAD file. Everything's there that you need, but it hasn't been made into GIS-friendly stuff. So that's going to be the
starting
first.
now.
That's the first step.
Yeah. This is a good opportunity for me to jump in and just let you know that the data is always, that provides the greatest integrity to your mapping system, right? And so the infrastructure part, and how the services work is one thing, but if you have data that's, coming from a variety of sources that is a variety of qualities, that's where most of the time is spent, is actually curating the material and then publishing it. So, and I do this, I do this all the time, right? People send me data, and it could either be wonderful, and then I do a dance, or it could be terrible, and then I'm, spending lots of time on it. So it's, it's either or, but that's really where you spend the most of the time is in the curation process.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm going to jump down here. I think that we answered all your licensing questions, Monty.
Right. On that, so there is one other licensing, maybe. Potentially, but to make these data connections that you're referring to, so we're going to have the map set up and the data is pulling from multiple sources. Are those licenses that are required to make those data connections, or is that built into the base product?
Can you open up that? Can you open up the licensing? Yeah, so there are tools that Esri has, a data interoperability extension that you could use. I'm pretty sure that's covered with all the licensing.
Yeah, we have that program.
Yeah. So that's one way to do it. And of course, this is it's just a SQL database. We're using Microsoft because we have a campus agreement with Microsoft, so we don't have to pay for SQL Server. So you can use any other tool that you have that you do any other database manipulation or transfers.
Right, so Monty, I think there's no cost associated with pulling data in from Famous or Oracle. All that's the the data curation that Ian was talking about, and that's done, in desktop or Pro, and there's no extra cost to do that.
Okay.
That happens in your shop at your end using your, disk storage space on a server or a desktop or somewhere like that.
Okay.
If that's what you were getting at in terms of saying pulling data from different sources.
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
That helps.
Okay.
Okay. So I'll move on to the hosted versus on-premise solution questions, and we've covered some of this too.
Yeah.
So what would you like to focus on in this section?
Can you scroll down a little more on that? Is there any difference for an end user, someone coming into our campus map, if the map is presented on ArcGIS online versus on-premise hosted? Is it seamless to the end user for both mobile and
desktop?
desktop?
It is. In general, it is. If you want to use the tools of ArcGIS Online, like those widgets, you would need Portal Local. But as far as the only thing that we kind of talk about sometimes is on the ArcGIS Online, if the web address is ArcGIS Online instead of what they're used to, uky.edu, then that's the only difference. You know, we tell people don't go to other sites, and now with the cloud version of the world, it's sort of like going to Office 365. Users are getting used to, oh, I go to sharepoint.com instead of uky.edu for everything. But as far as look and feel, it all depends on whether you customize a map from scratch or use one of the app builders.
Okay, great, thank you. Then the next one down is, I guess, probably what you just sampled, Michelle, which is the in-house use, like the utilities map. Obviously is not a public map. So
Correct.
how are you managing the controlled access to certain subset of maps? Is that all done you know, outside at our account management, you know, at our central OIM, or is that done in the Esri tools?
So on this one, of course, with security kind of things, you want to use multiple levels. So there's multiple levels. First, you encrypt the traffic between them, so all the sites are HTTPS sites. And then we've got it set up as a three-tier. So we have a web application layer that's open to more public addresses, then the ArcGIS servers, which are only private addresses, and they have a different port, and then the database. So inside those layers, you've got multiple levels of securing. You can secure at the web application level. We use Microsoft IIS. You can secure at that level. And then for the secured layers, like a utility layer, we also secure at the ArcGIS server level. And then the MXD that actually accesses the data in the database has another level of security. So there's multiple levels. You can certainly simplify and do most all of this on one server. But for the level we're running, we run three tiers. We do use AD since these are the ones that you're looking at. All that data is on-premise, so it's a Windows server and it's already connected to the domain. So we use the authentication method that uses our Active Directory security groups, and then those groups get put inside of that security Michelle showed you of roles. So Esri uses a role scheme, and then you can add a security group inside that, which gives you access to the service. And then, like I said, you can actually make the service access the database as a whole different user depending on what the map is. And then we also do that on our editing side. We make specific MXDs. So if you're editing the construction layer, you may have the buildings layer on the MXD or your mapping document, but the ID that's accessing the buildings cannot maintain them. So you don't have to worry about, oh, why did the buildings all move today? You only can edit the construction layer in this editing feature. So we do multiple levels to keep our data secure, not, oh, well, I didn't mean to upload something I didn't, or put it in a version I didn't do.
And that's a whole other conversation that we can show you our workflows on.
So
okay.
Because it's all bases off of a database that's in SQL Server, you've got multiple levels of securing this depending on how secure the data is, compared to we secure the data for editing for the base map, but as far as the public service, anybody can access that without an ID.
Okay. All right. So obviously there's no limitations as far as our level of being able to control this, then, is what I'm hearing.
The biggest limitation is something that we're not actually doing, but I've seen the Esri release it. We haven't tested it, but with the Federation Active Directory Federated Services, you should be able to actually make ArcGIS Online use your AD account. So if you went straight to ArcGIS Online, you would have to be, your university one would have to share out their Active Directory through ADFS, and then you'd have to get ArcGIS Online to authenticate through that. So if you didn't have all that set up, and we've been doing that other systems like ServiceNow we use for our help desk, and Kronos for our timekeeping. Those now are using the logins from our AD. So we'll be looking at ArcGIS Online in the near future. But if you don't have that set up, then ArcGIS Online, and that's one of the reasons we didn't go to it directly, is we didn't want to set up a whole separate set of IDs for all the users.
Oh yeah, no way. So, I mean, does the ArcGIS Online support us using our single sign-on? You know, we use Shibboleth using SAML. You know, will it support that integration?
It
I've seen
could,
documents on
but
it and presentations, but we haven't done it.
Yeah, so it could, Monty, but we haven't done it. ArcGIS Online at Brown has never, ever taken off to the point where I felt we needed to have that dialogue with the CIT people about getting Active Directory.
Right.
We're just not in, we don't have that level of demand. It's
Right.
easy.
Okay.
It's easy for me to manage the users through invitations, and I mean, yeah, because our university is not that big.
Right. Okay. Excellent. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions in the hosting?
Just on the, as far as when you make those data connections from Esri to, you know, our famous Oracle database, is that using web service calls, or how is that data transfer being? You said data connectors, but does it have true web services that can be used?
So on the first half is obviously the system of record would have to be able to web service the data out, and then after that, like I said, there's this extension, the data interoperability extension, which can run on ArcGIS server, but you also have other options. So on some of our maps, we actually pull from the web service directly. So depending on how you're writing the front end app, we may pull, for example, we do searches on buildings, for example, and we don't want to just limit ourselves to only what the building name is in GIS. So we actually hit a different database, a different web service to get all kinds of different names that people call it, more like a Google search, and then we bring that back and then translate that in GIS. So you've got multiple options there depending on whether or not you need the data in GIS. We're one of the few maybe, or one of the ones that believe that GIS doesn't have to store all the data for all your needs. So there are options, and it just depends on what the need of the application is, whether or not you want to feed it all in and have it sitting there. We have other apps. We have a building analysis map application where it's more of a reporting system, so people want a report that they run on Monday to match the square footage of space on Friday. So on those, we actually feed the data in, and it just sits there all week. So if you do a renovation change for that app, you don't see the changes until next week, so you get some consistency. So like I said, because this Esri is built on very stable platforms that are industry standards, you have multiple options of, do you need to feed it, or do you want to pull it directly from the source, or do you want to mix them?
Okay. Excellent. Thank you.
Okay.
Looks like we're bumping up against the time here, right? So.
Yep.
Yep.
I'll go into process real quick. One thing you asked about is, should CAD still be the authoritative source? The only thing that we use currently is CAD for our, single source of truth, so to speak, is for our floor plans, because I mean it's an architectural unit and it's the application of choice for renovation work. So what we do is this is our facilities plan database for our floor plans, and so everything is stored in CAD, but we have automated tools that push the updates to GIS, and in the GIS there's a data set for each floor plan for the building ID, and then this is all system generated from here. So we have these, actually I reverse it. These are all system generated from here. So inside of the feature data set, we have one feature class per floor. So this is kind of like what the CAD looks like. And then we render out 2 different web services that are geo-referenced that give us 2 different views that our web applications view to the users. But the source basically is in the same exact XY location units as the CAD file. We just use GIS as the publisher and the analyzer, but the CAD is the source. We always go to the CAD.
But for something like utilities, CAD just feeds it because you want to keep your network intact. So it depends on the data source.
Yeah. Our base map and our utilities are solely maintained in GIS, not CAD anymore.
So when you get a deliverable of a survey that was done, a site survey that was done, you know, as they're putting in the utilities and they survey all of it X, Y, and Z, is that loading directly right into your campus map, all that data?
No, currently it's not, but that's a weakness in our system. I am aware that, you know, some universities are doing it directly from the GIS side. So, you know, you clean up your shop where you can, and other people are more advanced. I think that it's Michigan State University. Contact Jade. I think that he was the one that told me that they have a more efficient process for utilities.
Okay. Wow. A lot of information here. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah. The last couple of questions here. Did you have anything you wanted to hone in on before I check for? Let me see if we have any questions coming in. But yeah, any other questions here you want to touch on?
I'd be really interested in hearing that the last question there with the skill sets to do the customization. I mean, is it a person who needs to have JavaScript or C++ or combination of things?
The tools now, if you're going to use the web app builder, are much easier to pick up on. Like I said, the utility map was done by our GS analyst. Our other maps are done by programmers. The skill sets right now we're looking at and use are all based on JavaScript and CSS and HTML.
Okay.
So the standard web programming of the future here.
Mm-hmm.
But for the widgets and those, it's much more integrating those features into it.
Right. Yeah, the web apps with the pre-built widgets is, I mean, even I can do that.
Yep.
That's not, but it's the really super customizable stuff that, you know, if the out-of-the-box stuff from ESRI web app builders don't do the trick, then you got to have somebody who's, I guess you're saying, has primarily JavaScript, CSS, and HTML.
That's correct.
That's correct.
It's database work, but a lot of that we actually use our GS analysts for. So they get into some of it, but as far as depending on what your GS analyst type positions do, whether you put that on the programmer side, usually the programmers, at least here, are not as fluent in the geospatial side of the house. They know it, but they're not drawing every day. So we actually do both.
Okay.
How
many GIS analysts does facilities management have?
We have one right now. We have 2 positions. One was for utilities, but where we're headed, if Michelle hasn't said, is we've gone to processes driven, so we use students and a lot more that we probably won't fill the second GS analyst.
We have 14 people in our geospatial team within
14.
facilities.
Okay.
Which in facility information services, I think we have about almost 30 positions.
Okay.
But not all of them do GIS.
No.
So that includes CAD and the library and facilities records. So there's basically 2 primary and students. We have a geospatial systems specialist and a GS analyst that do the core, and then the rest are support positions.
Okay. Then presumably they've had some sort of course in GIS to know what they're doing?
Nope.
Those students?
We train them. We take them and we train them. And at this point, we have our students making a fair bit of our maps for customer requests, because we all have templates and standards and procedures in place that they just can work efficiently.
Thank you.
I opened up on the screen Esther with Esri is on the line, Esther Worker, and she pointed out this resource website, Esri Education License Programming, has a lot of the updated resources to point to.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions, Monty?
That's about all I can absorb right now. So that's
That's fair.
yeah. So I appreciate you putting this together. It's been very constructive. So and everybody else that contributed too. Thank you for your time and efforts.
Great. There really weren't too many questions that came in. Just one comment, I guess, worth noting is that adding steps to routes is a fairly straightforward exercise in JavaScript using the Esri API with your sidewalk network. So that was a nice little tidbit of info. And then same person also said that they'd absolutely love to hear from anyone sharing data from Famous into GIS directly. And that's something that they haven't been able to master. A gentleman by the name of Ben Camp. Thank you, Ben, for that question. So, there's no other questions. Andrew, did you have anything else worth commenting on?
No, it's an exciting time. Like I said, it's the tools and options are much more plentiful nowadays. That it's certainly much easier from where you're starting.
Yeah,
yep.
Great.
Okay, well, I guess we'll go ahead and wrap up on time. Thank you, everyone, for getting together for today's webinar. I think that it was a hot topic that a lot of people struggle with, and hopefully some other people, some attendees, got some good info as well.
All right, well, thanks again.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Okay, this concludes today's webinar. Thank you to all the attendees who joined us today.
All right, so Monty, can I have 12 more staff?